Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in Internet Shitlords. Today, I'm going to talk to you about charity. I was going to talk to you about Zach S., but I'll leave that for a few days from now, I suppose. There hasn't been too much activity on the part of the SJWs in these last few weeks. I guess even they take a pause on things for Christmas time. But today something came up which I thought was worth sharing, just because it shows this kind of level of ridiculous narcissism that that I think makes it very clear what the real interests there are. So you've got D&D Beyond, and they have these channels that they do live games. Most of you are probably familiar with that. And they often have like celebrity guest stars, and there's tons of these, right? Some of them are official D&D live streams. Some of them, like Critical Role, are not officially D&D, but might be like tied to them in certain ways that I can't quite explain. But there's a whole lot of them. I don't watch any of them because they're all horrible. They're all kind of fake. They're this kind of production for profit, you know, and I don't much, have an interest in that sort of thing. But there are a lot of these that, of course, feature a widely diverse cast of actors portraying people playing a D&D game. As well as some, like, gaming celebrities, or some celebrities like, Wesley Crusher or whoever, Will Wheaton, or Mike Merles used to do it before he went into hiding and stuff like that. So there are lots of these, and lots of them, of course, have very diverse casts. So there's quite a lot that have, of color, LGBT people. There isn't a lack of representation in general. So what I'm going to talk to you today is about one of these live twitching gaming events in particular that was made by an organization, I guess you'd call it, called World Builders. Now, World Builders is a charity. And it's a charity, a gaming-related charity that is connected to a bigger general charity called Heifer International. You probably don't know what that is. I needed to look it up to find out what it is. Turns out it seems like a very, very good charity. Heifer International basically consists of people going to very marginal places in the third world. Like, I saw that they had a project in the extreme rural area of Bihar province in India, and they had another one in like the most remote part of Honduras, I think it was, Honduras or Guatemala, I forget which one. And so they go to these communities that are rural communities that are living a marginal subsistence lifestyle, and they provide them with tools and sometimes livestock, hence Heifer International, or they might give them a cow or something, and an organized plan of, oh, hey, speaking of livestock, guess who's here? It's Big Chungus. And they give them an organized plan for how they're going to go from being on the margins of subsistence to managing to have a steady living wage, a steady living income as a farming community. And so this can take an entire village out of poverty. And so that seems to me to be a very genuine and remarkable kind of charitable trust that goes to people in desperate need. We're talking about the poorest people in the world, basically. The least privileged people in the world, just so we remember that, because it'll be important later, right? And so World Builders tries to raise funds among gamers, with those funds supposedly going to Heifer International. All well and good. They decided to do, in collaboration, as I understand it, with D&D Beyond, a live stream show of celebrities that were invited, including, you know, Kins and Jeremy Crawford, two of the people that were involved in the lower echelons of designing the D&D Player's Handbook, and Felicia Day. And it was going to be an event. It was going to be to try to raise charity, incredibly good cause. What happened was you had some people from the SJWs that decided to attack this event. And there was a specific person, a they, them, by the name of Winter Big Gay. That's presumably not birth name. That made a post saying, how dare you? How dare world builders not have a single person of color on their panel, right? Their panel had 6 people. One of them was the guy that made the charity. One of them was Chris Perkins. One of them was Jeremy Crawford, Felicia Day. And then there was another woman, another man, neither of whom I know myself, but were probably people well known as live streamers or something like that. I don't know. I don't know who they were, but they were probably someone that the audience would recognize. I am clearly not the audience for these live stream games. So, but because we have anyone of color, this was obviously now a great act of evil. And you saw this thread where it got promoted all over the place. There was people making attacks on world builders, attacks on D&D, attacks on wizards, attacks on the people involved. How dare they participate in such a thing without having people of color there? And then there was this demand that people of color, I presume they meant themselves, right, of course, should be on that panel and paid for it, right? Never mind that this is a charity event. I'm pretty sure no one there was being paid for this, at least I hope not. But you know, imagine the narcissism of these people that you're going to try to shut down a charity event, that you're going to attack this charity event because you insist that they give you money to appear on it, you know? And it's ridiculous, right? Is there like no limit? It shows that there's really, first of all, no context to this to the of the identitarian left. And we've just seen, for example, the identitarian left in Britain. They were just destroyed in an election, just a wonderful election that turned out fantastically, where the momentum of the Labour Party were slaughtered by the common English people of all races and colors, right? Apparently the only minority group that voted overwhelmingly Labour, I think, was like the Muslim group, right? Because of course Labour is virulently anti-Semitic, so that's why they, you know, because there you are, right? But for example, Sikhs, Hindus, East Asians all voted in the majority for the Tory, right? It was a complete, for the Tory party, the Conservatives. So it was a complete sweep, and it was a rejection of this politics of divisiveness. And one of the reasons why they rejected it, and one of the reasons why it gets rejected everywhere, really, why it's going to be rejected in 2020 when Trump wins a landslide election in the US, why it's going to be rejected in the movies and in hobbies and gaming, right, where it's a little harder because there aren't elections, because we can't just vote out the assholes who are trying to impose social engineering, but where the invisible hand of the market will eventually do that. The reason why this is unpopular is because it is inevitably a product of an incredibly privileged group of people, right? For someone to be sufficiently privileged that they can live in a society where they're able to present themselves as a they, them, to look whatever way they want, act however they want, be whoever they want, express that, and garner support and praise for it, and to be encouraged in it, and to get to have this vocal presence where their identity is in fact celebrated, and where, never mind that they have all the, you know, kind of basic material needs and the material support and the structural and institutional support for all of those things to happen means that you're some of the most privileged people in the same society. There's white people and white people who are also among the most privileged people on earth. But the difference between Winter Big Gay and Chris Perkins, let's say, or any other white gamer, in terms of privilege, is this tiny, it's like a millimeter's difference. They're both incredibly privileged human beings, and almost everyone listening to this video is also an incredibly privileged human being that comes from a society of well, frankly, the greatest civilization humanity has ever produced, and live in something that is as close as humanity has ever gotten to a utopia, as close as we've ever achieved, right? The most prosperous, the most equal, the most peaceful, the most law-abiding society on earth, the society that has granted the most freedoms to its people, that is considered the most broad scope of its population, right? And so the complaint is coming from the part of elitists who don't know how incredibly good they have it, or if they know, they just don't care, because it's really all just about them. Because you know that this is, you know, what proves this is how these people were willing to hijack this event that was supposed to be for world builders. It was supposed to go to Heifer International, to an organization that goes to the places that are the least privileged on earth, where, by the way, they're all people of colors, right? You have, whether you're talking about Bihar province or whether you're talking about Central America, right? These are people who are not white. And there you go. Your representation, they're the ones that are being helped in this case, right? And they're the people, and these are people that are actually underprivileged, right? Anyone who's able to dedicate a significant percentage of their time to attacking Wizards of the Coast or World Builders or Chris Perkins or Jeremy Crawford, none of whom are my favorite people, by the way, but let's point out here that if you're attacking these guys over participating in a charity live streaming event, and you have time to do that, and you have the money to do that, and you have the health to do that, and you have the lifestyle that allows you to do that, and you have the technology to do that, then you are unbelievably privileged in a way these people that are being helped by Heifer International can't even imagine. All right? So this is the reason, for example, why Northerners in the UK who had voted Labour for the last 100 years, there were ridings where there literally had never been a Tory candidate who won. And they won the other day because the Labour people were saying, no, hang on, Labour's been taken over. I've been a Labour voter all my life. My dad was, my granddad was, they were all voters. You know, we hated Margaret Thatcher. We hated the Tory party. You know, they were the posh toffs from the south, you know. But we hate the new Labour even more because these are people that are also, they're a bunch of rich Londoners who don't care about the common man, right? And there's no more not caring about the common man than thinking that a charity event meant to stop babies in India or in Guatemala from starving to death should be all about you, right? And that you be there and that you be paid, right? That you demand that you're the one that gets to make it all about you. It shouldn't be about, you know, because how dare these starving Guatemalan babies, you know, or these starving Indian children get to make a show all about them when it should really be all about the inclusion of LGBT people of color, right? I bet you those babies in Bihar are white supremacists. That's the only reason why they would allow this. They shouldn't take that money otherwise, right? Like there's no other explanation why everything in the world shouldn't be about you, right? Everything. So this is what we're faced with, right? It's just It's a craziness, and it's a craziness that is increasingly coming under fire. And of course they keep firing back. I saw on the thread some people pointed out, you know what, why should, somebody dared to ask, why should a person of color necessarily be on that panel, right? Like, does it matter? I mean, are you saying that they should be on there just because they're a person of color, regardless of whether they're even interesting or not? And then that person immediately got labeled as a white supremacist, as an alt-right Nazi, and as someone who who was hateful and so on and so forth, you know, and that they were suggesting that people of color aren't interesting, right? And that's not what he said, actually. You know, he said, you don't seem to care, you know, that the SJWs don't seem to care if a person of color is interesting or not, right? And so they just went after him like crazy. But you know what? It'll be okay because nowadays there's much more pushback against SJWs than there ever was before. Fascinating element of the results of all this effort is that recent polls have shown that younger people, especially the Zoomers, basically, have dropped precipitously in their support for things like feminism and the LGBT advocacy. And, you know, that's kind of sad to me because, of course, when I was a young person, feminism and LGBT advocacy were very good and necessary sort of things and not something that had been hijacked by this absolute extremist element, right? And so I think it's very unfortunate that the result of this extremist element trying to engage in totalitarian tactics has been that, for the first time, decades anyway, support for people under 20 for LGBT activism has dropped below 50%, right? Where now the majority of younger people don't even believe in that anymore, right? They don't believe in it because it's been hijacked and it's been abused and it's been used in ways that are pretty terrible and pretty narcissistic and pretty self-serving. And so we're going to see more of this. The Zoomers they're just going to be fantastic monsters or terrible. I don't know. It's hard to say at this point because there's some stuff about them that scares the hell out of me. But, you know, it gives me hope. But this is the counter reaction to what we've been having to deal with for the last 15 years with the millennials. The chickens are coming home to roost. And I don't know if it's going to be... I'm not saying it's going to suddenly be all wonderful either. But I guess what happens when you try to push, and what do you get when you end up pushing this totalitarian agenda to the point that it's very obviously all about your own self-aggrandizement? You get what you fucking deserve. That's everything for today. Please be sure to share this video, to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Check out. I've got a Patreon and a PayPal button, but if you really want to support me and get something back, check out the RPG Pundit Presents PDF series. A new one has just come out. We'd been on hiatus for a little while, but now we're up to, I think it's 96, 97, I don't know. It's the Medieval Bestiary Part 2, which is an OSR guide to a list. You know, Part 1 came out a few issues earlier, 93 I think it was, in the Present series. These are monsters that are actual detailed monsters from medieval folklore, myth, legend, and chronicles, presented with full stats for OSR play. You can use them in pretty much any, you know, fantasy game derived from D&D, and they have lots of details based on actual medieval accounts about them. So if that sounds cool to you, there you are. That's a product. It's $2.99. You get something, and you give me some cash as a tip. If you want to PayPal me, great. But if you want to get something back, there you are. That's the product you get back for people that are into that. And if you don't like the sound of that, there's like nearly 100 other issues to look at of like weird fantasy stuff, setting stuff, adventures, monsters, spells, magical techniques, items, all sorts of things. You know, setting details, everything you can imagine. Check it out and buy a bunch of RPG Pundit Presents stuff to help encourage me to keep making more videos. More than anything, though, let's say if you don't have even a $2.99 to donate to the cause, you can still help enormously by sharing this video and spreading the word and talking about, you know, discussing, comment below, you know, what you think. You know, am I wrong? Maybe you want to defend the, what was it? Winter Big Gay about the fact that there should be always a minimum legally required representation of people of color in an event to stop babies from starving. I don't know. Think about it. Let me know and share it. Currently smoking near a poker plus country doctor.